airing it.
Mark, always good to have you there. Thank you. Mark Lowen there live in Paris for us. Let's talk now to Jamie Smith-Maillet, who's a French freelance journalist. Jamie, good to have you with us. So Mark there running through kind of what's happening now ahead of this second round. And the tactical voting here is having to do a lot of heavy lifting if President Macron is to secure any sort of, I suppose, that this won't backfire quite as badly as it looks like it could.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, tactical voting is part and parcel of the Fifth Republic in many ways. Yeah. And then with this two-round system, the majority vote going forward to the next level, then we definitely see this week of strategy and tactics and all sorts of new alliances and calls to stand down in certain seats, which is happening. What's different this time round is we have a record number of seats where there are three candidates still standing. Yeah. And this call as well from the bloc on the left have said that they will stand down in a lot of places. So it's a bit of a heated time, of course, and it's also very short. I mean, this has to be done by tomorrow, Tuesday, for the final candidates to be written up for listing for Sunday's second round election.
And the reason that this is even more complicated, because even if the National Rally, get the support that they're calling for, there's no guarantee of an outright majority, and that makes governing France pretty difficult, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, polling is tricky to read at the moment as well, talking about the majority there. It's saying possibly between 260 to 290 seats, which should just be over the majority there. But governing, no matter what, is going to be tricky for Macron. If there is a majority, an absolute majority, then it means this cohabitation that we talk of in the French system, where we have the president of one party and then obviously the far right working together in some way, shape or form, despite ideological differences. But even without that, a hung parliament, which is the case just now, but even a reduced, I mean, a very small minority government in some case, how will Macron make that work? That really is the question. We're looking at paralysis in many ways, is probably a likely outcome.
And talk to me about what we've learned about trends right across Europe right now. Because if we look at what's happening on the continent, in mainland Europe, there's been that push to the right. You look at what's happening in the UK, and if you believe the polls ahead of our general election on Thursday, a push to the left. What is going on? Is this just cyclical and people are saying, look, now is the time for some sort of change? And the UK's a little bit out of step because of Brexit? Or is there a more fundamental reset in how we look at our politicians and what we want them to deliver?
Yeah, I think there's a number of different things at play there, and it's difficult to be concise and clear and say this is absolutely what's happening. But of course, yeah, the level, one thing is populism in some way, which is interesting. Some commentators saying that the UK has been through its period of populism with Brexit. Right. And that this is now happening elsewhere in Europe, saying that that's the case in France just now. We can look into other countries as well. And in some cases, that also means that the far right parties in many ways are gaining ground also, I would say, because of crises across the continent. So we can see there, for instance, the cost of living crisis, questions that they're pushing around immigration as well is obviously a question that the far right is pushing, but also geopolitical instability. The wars on the borders of Europe have not helped us all, and leading to mainstay parties in the middle really struggling to keep that sort of afloat.
And I suppose the big question everyone will have is whether the extremes, be it left or right, are able to deliver on some of those things they promise. But obviously in opposition it's much easier than when you're in government.
Yeah, absolutely. It is often easier to criticise government than actually to be in government. And that some analysts were saying, well, was that what Macron was perhaps trying out with his gamble? Did he want to say, OK, well, here we go, we'll try it out, see what happens. Will it be a mess? And then going forward in 2027, see what happens next. I mean, yes, to be seen. And whatever happens in France, I think the word we have heard quite a lot in the last few days, since this weekend and before, is it's historic. And this is a real change. No matter what happens in France, we can sense this change happening just now. And the political landscape in France has changed. And whatever happens next week, next Sunday, this change will go forward for years ahead.
It's good to talk to you, Jamie. Thank you for explaining all of that. Really good to have you with us here in the studio. Jamie Smith-Maillet, French freelance journalist.